Good evening. At this time, please silence your cell phones and be advised that these proceedings are being recorded. If you desire to address the City Council during the meeting, please complete a request to speak form available at the front entrance and present it to the City Clerk. Speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time, and each person will be allowed 3 minutes speaking time. If you're calling in or you're Zooming in, please let the City Clerk know if you intend to speak during any of the public comment sections. And at this time, our City Clerk will make a Zoom broadcasting announcement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As of June 15th, the City of Grand Terrace reopened its public meetings. Therefore, tonight's meeting of February 9th is open to the public. Please be advised that face masks are required, social distancing will be practiced, and occupancy limits will be enforced. Additionally, pursuant to Section 3 of Executive Order N2920, issued by Governor Newsom, tonight's meeting will also be conducted telephonically through Zoom and broadcast live on the city's website and Channel 3. If you would like to participate telephonically and speak on an agenda item, you can access the meeting by dialing 1-669-900-9128 and enter meeting ID number 890-9384-1359. and enter password number 929078. You will be placed in the waiting room muted until it is your turn to speak. You may also submit your comments by sending them to ccpubliccomment@grandterrace-ca.gov. The City of Grand Terrace thanks you for taking all precautions to prevent spreading COVID-19.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. So at this time, I will call to order the regular City Council meeting for February 9th, 2021, the City of Grand Terrace. And tonight, we have a special treat. We will be having an invocation offered by Pastor Mike Leno of Azure Hills Seventh-day Adventist Church. Please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to follow.
Lord, I thank you that you will bless them because they will bless others. Lord, I also ask that you heal us, heal our land, heal our institutions, heal us individually and collectively. And Lord, may your grace prevail on earth as it does in heaven. I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Councilmember Allen, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
We begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Leno. Very happy to have you here tonight. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Madam City Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Wilson.
I am here.
Councilmember Robles. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Hussey.
Present.
Mayor McNabo.
Present.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So we begin tonight with a special presentation from the San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health Inroads Program. Mr. David Fallon, who's the supervisor, will be zooming in to give us a presentation tonight. Mr. Fallon.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm just going to get right into the comments because I think I was told I have about 20 minutes and I have quite a bit of information to share. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is David Fallon. I work for the San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health. I've been working with the homeless for about 15 years in some capacity. I began supervising programs in 2010 in Honolulu, ran a housing-related program with the homeless, and in 2011, ran an outreach team in Hollywood. And then in about 2017, I got a job with the county, and Inroads was created, and we began running in August of 2019. So just to start to tell you about what Inroads is. So Inroads stands for Innovative Remote Outreach Assistance Delivery, kind of a long name. Basically, what it means is the innovations part has to do with the funding that we receive and the type of program or project that it is. Right now it is a project, a 5-year project funded by MHSA, which is funding that goes to innovation for new projects related to mental health. So it's a learning project. We're doing some new things that have never been done before in the realm of homeless outreach and learning as we go. So the remote part of it is that we've been tasked with going out into places where other programs cannot go, and we have a specific equipment for that, off-road vehicles or trucks, large trucks. We work with sheriff deputies as well. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We work with the HOPE team. That's the remote part of it. The outreach is pretty obvious. We do 80 to 90% of what we do is in the field, serving the clients in the field. And we have laptops and equipment in order to be able to do that. And so the assistance delivery is we provide our services in the field. Every service that we have in our team is provided in the field to the homeless. So to talk a little bit about our teams, so the overarching agency is Department of Behavioral Health. It's all run through Department of Behavioral Health, which I work for as the clinic supervisor. We work with 3 other agencies in partnership, and that's one of the new innovation pieces of this project. We work with the Department of Aging Adult Services. We work with Public Health, and we work with the Sheriff Department. So from DBH, we have a clinical therapist who is the lead on the team. They provide the knowledge of all the systems, and they are able to do assessments in the field related to mental health, which obviously a lot of people on the streets have mental health difficulties. Through DBH, we also have a substance abuse counselor, so they can provide that service to people on the street. Their knowledge and expertise related to substance abuse. With DBH, we have a peer and family advocate, and this person is someone who's been through the system, has knowledge and experience directly related to systems related to homelessness, and so they are able to be a companion type person to people on the street and connect with them in a way that service providers or licensed people are not always able to connect. On the DOS side, each team has a SSP, a social worker specializing in adult services with connections to APS, Adult Protective Services, because we find that there are a lot of elderly on the street. So that addresses that need. Then we work with public health. We have nurses embedded on the teams, each team, and they provide obviously some wound care and some medical assistance on the street and their expertise related to medical. So those are, and then we have the deputies on each team. Each team has a deputy, and these people have been trained by the HOPE team, which is a team that's been out working with the homeless in the county. You may have heard of the HOPE team. They've been around for, I believe, 15 years. Our deputies are trained by the HOPE team, and so they keep the team safe, and they assess situations, and they learn to connect with the homeless as well, and kind of like connect with them in a way that other law enforcement obviously don't, like to make a more positive experience with law enforcement. And then so right now, the funding was to have 4 teams. Right now we have 2 teams. One is East-West Valley. That's the team that works in your area and all the valley down there as well, San Bernardino and all that from, I believe, Yucaipa all the way to past Upland or to Upland. And then we have the High Desert team, Morongo Basin team that's up here in the high desert that takes care of all that area, massive area. And then we have a 3rd team the medical treatment units. So on that team, there was a nurse practitioner. Unfortunately, she did pass away of COVID. But on that team is a nurse practitioner who goes out to where we have high need medical clients and provides limited medical treatment on the street. And they have an LVN on their team. An LVN is a licensed vocational nurse that does their, that fills their orders and sometimes fills medications and that kind of thing and brings them to people on the street. So that's a kind of in a nutshell what our teams are. So the job that we do, obviously, is to find people on the street and provide services to them on the street, especially people who are difficult to engage. So often it takes, I believe it's Hope Team that has a quote where they say 75 visits. Often it takes a lot of legwork and a lot of visits to connect with some of these people. So we're tasked with engaging with people who are way out in the boonies, hiding from people and trying to, and working to get them engaged in services. We have a special model that we use for engagement. It's called LEAP. I won't go into it, but it's one that's growing in the county, a way of engaging with people who are difficult to engage with people who may even believe that they don't have problems. And obviously, when you're on the street, you have quite a bit of problems. So, so with that, we help prepare people for their next step, whatever that next step is that they want to work towards. If it's documentation readiness to get into housing, we work to help them get documents. If it's getting linked to treatment, like mental health treatment, we link them to the clinics or mental health related services. If we need to, we call APS to get them involved. That's happened quite a bit. So, and if even people with rehab, with our substance abuse counselor, we've had quite a bit of success of getting people engaged with rehab and getting them into rehab, which has been great. So obviously we provide a lot of linkage on the street to any services that we find. So one of the things we do is or at least we did in the beginning prior to COVID, is a lot of outreach to other agencies to find out, hey, what do you guys do? How can we work together? And, you know, the services that are already there, how can we help you and how can you help us and vice versa? And we have developed, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but we have developed some partnerships with other agencies who are already doing it and they're doing very well at it. And we're learning from them as well. So, one thing you should know is we are not a crisis team. There are crisis teams in the county. CCRT is the crisis team, but we do often address crisis when we get calls. So we'll go out and we'll triage the situation and we'll address it appropriately, whether or not we need to contact CCRT or whether or not we need to get an ambulance. 9 times out of 10, it's an ambulance visit or take someone to the hospital. So we do linkage in that way as well. So the hours are about the partnerships. So in the early days prior to COVID, we were researching a lot of the areas and homeless services that people provide, and we have developed partnerships, some really good partnerships. Up in the desert, we work with the rescue mission very closely. We work with the Salvation Army in San Bernardino very closely. And there's an organization, a very small organization in the Morongo Basin, I'm forgetting the name of, but we work with them as well. And the benefit of this is obviously people are going to these places for services anyway. So we can go there and meet with people and be there when they're serving people. We've done that. It's been a little bit more difficult to do that kind of thing with COVID and having to distance and having to wear masks, but we foresee returning to doing a lot more of that activity later on. We've also utilized our own agencies like the clubhouses where homeless people tend to congregate and go for services like laundry and that type of thing to meet up with people as well. So maybe I can talk a little bit about some of the needs that we've seen out there in the county, if this would be helpful. But obviously the biggest need of the people out there is housing. We live in a state where housing is very expensive, especially in decent areas of the state. With people who are on SSI, they can't afford, apartments at a cost $2,000 a month. There's just no way they can afford that kind of thing. So that's the highest need, obviously. When we can, we work to link people to housing as much as possible, like room and boards and that kind of thing, and shelters. But those are not favorite and ideal situations, obviously. It's usually a lot of people packed into one place, and it's good for short term, but not for long. So long-term housing solutions is definitely a high need. So you might want to know that, prior to COVID, we were seeing kind of housing numbers ticking down. Well, with COVID, it's really amping back up, and likely to get even more so, especially with so many people out of work, continue to be out of work. When the moratorium, foreclosures and that type of thing, and evictions is over, nobody has any clue how that's going to affect the homeless numbers. So it is on the rise, and it will continue to be on the rise, most likely for the foreseeable future. We've seen, since I've been doing this, we've seen a rise in elderly. As more generations age, we've seen a rise in the elderly population with the homeless. Surprisingly and disturbingly, in California, we've seen a rise in families with young children, which is concerning as well. And we've seen a rise in young adults, kind of people who haven't started working yet, haven't even built a career or anything. A lot of young adults becoming homeless as well. So those are some of the definite issues out there these days. So just so you know, as far as how to contact us or when we're operating, since we're not at crisis related, we do work during the day. We're Monday through Thursday, 10-hour, 4 days a week program. 7:30 to 6 is our hours. I'll go ahead and read the number. I'm guessing somebody's taking notes. But our number to contact us is 909-421-9262. And that'll go to our main office. And then that person routes, and based on where it is, they route the person to the particular team that would respond. So agencies can call, relatives can call that knows of a child that's homeless or an uncle that's homeless, and the actual clients, the people on the street, they can call as well, because a lot of them do have cell phones, or often have cell phones, and so anyone can call. If it's not someone that fits what we serve, then we find the correct program, and we help to find the right program. With that, I'm proud to say that this program, it's still in its infancy. We're in year 2. We've done a lot of great work out there. COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything, like it does everywhere else. But what we did is we stepped up in the county to help where help was needed as far as COVID. At the Glen Helen trailers, where they quarantine people who have COVID, we've been there helping to serve the people. We've done transportation for them. Project Room Keys, where they put homeless people who are at risk of getting COVID, or high risk of getting COVID. We've been there serving those people. We bring them food. We give them services. We have the therapists come out and talk to them regularly, especially in the high desert. Desert Haven, which is a housing facility that's opening up in the high desert. We've been a part of that, like getting people assessed and paperwork. Transportations everywhere and anywhere we've been a part of related to COVID. So we've been in the places that we've been needed, we've been filling in the gaps. The staff that I have is extremely dedicated. They work very hard all day, every day. They love the work they do. We're very lucky to have the staff that we have. They're all very into the work that they do and very proud of the work they do. So very lucky with that. So with that, if there's any questions or any response.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. I appreciate you being here tonight. Council members have questions at this time? Councilmember Hussey? Mayor Pro Tem Hussey, pardon me. Where's that quarter jar?
That's right. David, I just want to thank you for working with me yesterday on resolving this situation, you and the Hope team. I don't know if it was a test to see how your guys' program works, but, you led that gentleman in the right direction, so he's starting, or he's in the system, so hopefully we'll have a good overall outcome. But you guys were spot on. Your team that came out to the area, great group of team players there, and they just took the ball and went running. And the Hope team, you guys, it's a good team, and I'm glad we have something. It's you learn a lot when you're trying to help them and what's going out there. So I appreciate everything you did, and then Sheriff's Department too. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that's how we roll. We get the calls and we just go to where we're needed. Most of the time it's people who are on the street and it takes a long time to connect with people, but oftentimes it is quick and easy, and many times it's not. So we just keep on going. We just keep trying to work with the person as long as they're willing to engage on some level. And most people are at least willing to have a conversation with you. And that often, the word inroads is correct. We work at it. We work our way in there to help whoever we can, whenever we can. So thank you.
I have a question for you. With the size of the county, how is it that you are able to address needs throughout the entire county? With 2 teams, 3 teams, 10 hours a
So
week?
there's supposed to be 4 teams, and there were 3 up until recently. We lost one of our leads, so that team had to combine. So the way that we're doing it now with only 2 teams is the lead decides which area is going to be served at which time. So east-west, that team is in the east 2 days a week, and then they're in the west 2 days a week. Now, since they're combined teams, they're larger than one single team, so they split up in the area. Like 4 people will go north and 4 people will go south. So they cover a lot more ground that way. So in that way, it's been successful covering more ground. High desert. So we found that the need in the Morongo Desert, where we were supposed to have a team. So the issue with the team in Morongo Basin is we have not been able to fill all the positions for that team. There's not a lot of people who want to work in Morongo Basin out in Joshua Tree. We seem to have found a couple of people who do, which is great, but one of them is not a lead. So our high desert lead has to lead that team. But what we've found is that the need is not great in Morongo Basin. So that team is out there, that little pocket, small team is out there a couple days a week, but the primary team stays out in the high desert, dividing and conquering in the high desert.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? All right, well, thank you so much for your time. And this sounds like a really good program. Hopefully you continue to have funding for it. We definitely need it in the county.
Yeah, the need is proven. So I'm guessing it'll continue after 5 years. We still have 3.5 years. After 5 years, it'll continue in some way. probably with DBH running it, probably all the positions will become embedded in DBH. But the next stage is to find a way to fund itself, and we're already in that process. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem getting it continuing. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from anyone who needs help. Just give us a call and we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, you too.
All right, next we have a closed session item that we will be talking about. Is there any public comment for the closed session at this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, so council will recess to closed session. We have 2 items of business: conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, 2 potential cases. And the second item is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code section 54956.8. Properties included are 22317 Barton Road, APN 1167-231-01, 22273 Barton Road, APN 1167231-02, and 22293 Barton Road, APN 1167311-01. City negotiators G. Harold Duffy, City Attorney; Adrian Guerra, City Attorney. Negotiating party, Greens Group, Inc., and under negotiation is price and terms of payment. So at this time, we are in recess. All right, we'll reconvene to open session. City Council met in closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, 2 potential cases, no reportable actions. Direction was given to staff. Item number 2 that we considered as conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code section 54956.8, properties 22317 Barton Road, APN 1167-231-01, 22273 Barton Road, APN 1167-231-02, and 22293 Barton Road, APN 1167-311-01. City negotiators G. Harold Duffy, City Manager, and Adrian Guerra, City Attorney. Negotiating parties, Green Group, Inc., under negotiation, price and terms of payment. No reportable actions on that item. So we will continue with our agenda, although we are all usually ready to go home after a closed session. And how refreshing, we're just getting started. Under reordering of additions to or removal of items from the agenda, are there any that we need to take into consideration?
There are none, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by City Council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of an item from the consent calendar for discussion. Are there any requests for items to be removed? All right, seeing none.
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Hussey and second by Councilmember Allen. If you would please call the vote, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robles? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor McNabo?
Thank you. Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Do we have any, we'll open public comment at this time for members of the public to comment on items not appearing on the regular agenda. Do we have a request to speak at this time?
We have one written correspondence that's been placed in front of each of you at the dais from Jonathan Hawes, former city clerk with the City of El Monte. He just wanted to express his concerns with the treatment of the local residents, but we will make the full email available to the public.
The
when we
local
post.
El Monte residents?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so no other request to speak during this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment, return to our agenda. We have no public hearings at this time. We have one item of unfinished business, item 6 on the agenda. City of Grand Terrace legislative platform for Assemblymember Reyes and State Senator Leyva to advance in California State Assembly and Senate. Mr. G. Harold Duffy, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, G. Harold Duffy, City Manager. This is tonight's presentation is basically a final review of the City of Grand Terrace's 2021-22 legislative priorities before forwarding our information to the State Assembly and to the State Assembly representatives. So just a quick refresher, when the City Council establishes legislative priorities, we have these worksheets that we provide for each subject matter. The worksheets consist of the category, a program cost estimate, and any existing resources that we might have toward the project. In addition to that, we also kind of identify potential state funding. We talk about the request in terms of what we'd like to see: a letter of support, proposed legislation, amending existing legislation, or recommend rule change. We also try to look at potential state funding sources. So none of the items that are listed on the legislative priorities would be there unless there was some source identified as a funding source for us to try to move the item forward. So in the past, we've had legislative priorities, and these are the categories that we have for tonight: the hazard mitigation, traffic enforcement, school construction, recreation, and public safety. As a staff report indicates, there's some other items that we were successful in the last platform, but these are the items that are still moving forward. Based upon our conversation that we had a couple weeks ago, the council wanted us to come back with another hazard mitigation program dealing with storm drain infrastructure. That worksheet that was included because we have lack of infrastructure. We want to look at the current system, how the current system contaminates the clean water systems also. And we also wanted to talk about the velocity of water traveling on our street surfaces. So I provided that worksheet, but I would like to be able to maybe just modify just a few things within that to kind of really identify the landscape that we have in the city of Grand Terrace. And basically, because half the city's on the hill, water flows downhill, and that's what's really happening in terms of the velocity and the property damage that's occurring on the west end of town. Just a reminder, too, that we also have the League of California Cities that we partner with, and the council passed the resolution 2018.04, that basically allows staff to draft a letter for the mayor to sign when there's legislation that the league would like us to sign. That letter is then forwarded to all the council members, and if there is no objection to moving forward, the mayor signs the letter and moves forward. If not, if there's someone who wants to have a discussion about it, we take it to the next council meeting, and the council has a discussion before the letter is signed. So with that, I'm available for any questions the council might have.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Are there questions at this time? Any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll come back for any deliberation or consideration of a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the City of Grand Terrace's legislative platform for 2021 and authorize staff to forward the platform to Assemblymember Reyes and Senator Leyva.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Allen and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Hussey. If you would, please call the vote.
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robles? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor McNamara?
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. All right, under new business, item number 7, amended and restated professional services agreement with Lancel and Lunchard LLP for financial auditing services. Cynthia Fortune, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. The staff report before you tonight is the request to amend and restate the professional services agreement with Lancel and Lunchard for financial auditing services. Next slide, please. The staff report supports goal number 1, ensuring our fiscal viability through the continuous monitoring of receipts and disbursements against approved budget appropriations. Next slide, please. So to give council a background, the Government Accounting Standards Board, or GASB, establishes the financial and accounting standards for U.S. state and local governments that follow generally accepted accounting principles, and that is what the city does. And these standards are recognized as authoritative by state and local governments, the State Board of Accountancy, and the American Institute of CPAs. Next slide, please. This same board develops and issues accounting standards through a transparent and inclusive process intended to promote financial reporting that provides useful information to taxpayers, public officials, investors, and others who use financial reports. So when we prepare the annual financial report, this board issues all these standards, and if you've ever heard people say GASB 68, GASB 75, these are the standards that they are referring to, that we need to adhere to when an audit is performed on our books and when we prepare our financial reports. So continue. Since the award of the Financial Auditing Services Agreement to Lancel and Lunchard, LSL, the board has instituted additional accounting and reporting requirements that have been added to the agreement. Next slide, please. So in 2014, City Council awarded a 5-year financial auditing agreement with LSL, and in 2018, it was extended for another 2 years. Next slide, please. Since contract award, additional report requirements have been added. So the housing successor now is required to prepare its own annual financial report that we provide to City Council at the end of the calendar year, December 31st. And 2 new GASB standards have also since been added. So that is, they were requiring different accounting and financial reporting for pensions, and they were also requiring different accounting and financial reporting for other post-employment benefits other than pensions. Next slide, please. And I know these have a lot of numbers, but what I really wanted to show was this was our original 5-year agreement, and all the reports that had to be implemented as a result of all these additional GASB statements. What I wanted to show, if you see that last line, is for the first couple of years, and this is the way they submitted their proposal, LSL increased their contract by 3%, and then they lowered it to 2.5% the next following years because we had to add an additional report. And the reason why I highlighted the adjusted total in blue is because in these years we have not had to require a single audit. A single audit is required if we get federal grant funds that exceed $750,000 in any 1 year. So during this last 5 year, although we do receive federal grant monies, it has not exceeded $750,000. Next slide, please. So when we requested in 1819 to provide a 2-year extension, LSL kept the rates the same for that year and only increased it 2% for 1920. Next slide, please. So now that, the COVID pandemic is around, the effect it has had on our auditing services is, as everyone knows, everything has been restricted to email, Zoom meetings, regular mail, and faxes. So requests for information documents had required a lot of extensive scanning, access to file transfer protocols, FTP sites, because these documents can be huge at times. And because LSL has been with us a while, they made sure that this auditing service was going to be as smooth as possible and as painless as they could help us if they could. And they were really good during our 1920 audit, which is our last audit. Next slide, please. And so knowing that the pandemic, LSL is aware that the city did declare a fiscal emergency, and they're fully aware that a lot of cities are hurting due to the decrease in revenues as a result of the pandemic. So their proposed 2021 fees is the same as their 17 and 18-19 fees. And in addition to that, they're only extended now by 2% instead of the 3 or the 2.5 that they have been doing before. Next slide, please. So what staff is recommending is that City Council approve the amended and restated agreement. And like I said, for their 2021 fees, they're bringing us back to the 17-18 and 18-19 fees that they had originally provided us, and then increasing that only 2%. Next slide, please. And just to mention that we are already in the middle of our 2020-21 fiscal year. At this time, staff is recommending that City Council approve an amended and restated professional agreement with LSL for financial auditing services for 2021 and 21-22, and authorize the city manager to execute 2 additional extensions, and authorize the mayor to execute the amended and restated agreement. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions City Council may have. Rich Kikuchi, the managing partner for LSL, is also on Zoom and will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Fortune. Questions of staff at this time? Mrs. Fortune, I have a question.
Yes, Mayor.
The auditors that have come over the years that we have had these contracts, do they assign different auditors every year? And will they assign different auditors in the next 2 years?
Yes, Mayor. They actually assign new auditors every year, so that there's not any opening for collusion or anything like that. Yeah. The main constant is the managing partner, which is Mr. Kikuchi. So he makes sure that even if the auditors are new, that it's always a smooth transition. And I should have mentioned that, and I'd forgotten.
That's okay. All right, that was my one question, so I'll open it up for public comment. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, so we'll close public comment and bring it back to council for further discussion or consideration of a motion.
I make a motion for approve the recommendation.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Robles and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Hussey. Please call the vote.
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robles?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor McNabb?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 8, which is approve amended and restated agreement with Hirsch and Associates in order to continue contract services for completion of the Blue Mountain Trail. This will be presented by Planning and Development Services Director Steve Weiss.
Good evening, Mayor McNabb and council members. For the record, Steve Weiss, Director of Planning and Development Services. The item before you is Hirsch and Associates amended and restated contract for the Blue Mountain Trail. The 2030 vision is goal 4, develop and implement successful partnerships through the design and planning of the Blue Mountain Nature Trail and Trailhead. So the city applied for and was awarded $212,552 through a Habitat Conservation Fund grant to construct the Blue Mountain Nature Trail and Trailhead on the properties owned by the city. The city applied for the grant funding to assist in the construction of a legal access point to the top of Blue Mountain, which currently there is no means to legally access Blue Mountain for hiking other than the annual Blue Mountain hike. The proposed trail and trailhead are intended to provide a place for hikers to park and trail to connect to the existing access road for hiking. The trail would connect to the existing Blue Mountain access road, which is on private property. Hirsch and Associates contract, the work will be done in 2 phases. Right now we're in the first phase, which is the design work. The scope of the work for the design includes community outreach, design of the park, presentation of the plans to the City Council, and preparation of the construction document, which are plans, specs, and engineering. At the end of Phase 1, a construction estimate will also be available, and this will also be provided to the City Council. In order to carry out Phase 1, the city entered into a contract with Hershey & Associates in 2019 for $145,510 to Mr. Ken Foley, who is project manager, and he has commenced work on this contract. Phase 2 is preparation of the bid documents, construction and labor support. Staff will return to council for approval of Phase 2 upon completion of Phase 1. COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused unforeseen delays and continues to delay progress. For example, it has caused substantial delays relating to property owner and community participation and resulted in many of Hershey & Associates' tasks under this contract to be delayed. As a result, only some of the services have been performed, and there are still funds available on the contract to complete the remaining services for this project. As a result, only $42,423 in services of the authorized $145,000 for the original agreement with Hershey & Associates for services relating to Blue Mountain Trailhead have been completed. There is a remaining balance of $103,087. The City Council has therefore recommended to approve the amended and restated agreement so all tasks in the original contract can be accomplished, and authorize the city manager to sign such agreement subject to city attorney approval as to form. The amended and restated agreement does not add any additional services or any additional costs beyond what was originally approved in the 2019 agreement. Rather, it allows for an updated schedule of performance, reflects the work that has been completed and work yet to be performed, and identifies amounts already paid for completed work. The amended and restated agreement is included. So our recommendation to the council is to approve the attached amended and restated professional services agreement with Hershey & Associates to continue services for the completion of the Blue Mountain Trailhead, and direct the city manager to execute the agreement subject to city attorney approval as to form. At this time, this concludes staff presentation, and we are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weiss. Questions of staff? Councilmember Allen?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Weiss, for that report. My question is about the location of the project that Hirsch has worked on in the past, and the remainder of the contract money that needs to be spent. Does this have to be spent on that single location that they worked on originally, in other words, for observation of Van Buren Connect, or because I went to all their meetings that Hirsch had, and I left with the impression that that's an unworkable location for what we desire it for, and that there are other locations maybe on the table. Is that $100,000 have to be spent on that location, or can it be spent on other locations in the future if we decide to move the park and trailhead to a different location from the one that we had originally thought about?
It's my understanding that within the contract, and that's why this contract does have some livability to it, that the location, desired location, would be up off Honey Hill, and there would be a trailhead parking area there, and then there would be the necessary easements that would be granted through that. And there's been work done through, we've been doing some aerial photography and looking at how the easements really work, so it is actually the more practical, safer route.
Yeah, okay, so we're not pursuing developing a park for observation Van Buren Meet.
No.
At this, okay, that answers my question. Thanks, Mayor.
I'm wondering when they had community meetings. I don't remember receiving any notice of community meetings.
We were dying to have a community meeting this last year, but because of COVID, we could not have it. So that has really hamstrung our efforts.
So the location of the trailhead has changed without community meetings?
No,
Is
Mayor.
what I'm hearing Councilmember Allen ask you.
No, Mayor, if I can just chime in here for a second. So initially, when we started the project, we had a community meeting of the neighborhood in the surrounding area.
So it wasn't so much a community meeting as it was a neighborhood meeting?
Right, it was a kickoff in a neighborhood meeting. And one of the things that Hearst Associates did was they had walked the site and they came up with preferred locations for the site. But we had our particular site, and what they showed the neighborhood of the existing site and what was the preferable route on the existing site. But going to Councilmember Allen's question is, Hearst Associates is being, their contract is for them to develop a trailhead and trail. It's not specific to that particular site. When they walked the entire site, they did say that the easiest and the best route was on Palm and Honey Hill. So that was always in play, but the site that the city owned is on Observation in Van Buren. So there's been no determination yet in terms of the location. We are still working with the various property owners to try to secure the best site. But in terms of hierarchy, Hearst and Associates did say that the Palm and Honey Hill was the best location, but they knew that we owned the particular site on Observation in Van Buren, so they were originally designing that location as the starting point for the trailhead. There have been no designs completed at this point in time, and so the contract is fluid and able to move over to a preferred location.
Okay, so what's left in phase one, and when will there be a new schedule?
So I think Mr. Weiss went through in the packet page 150 starts and lists what's incomplete and what is complete for the scope of work for the project. Our next phase is that we have been working with Dr. Sigestedt, Elveret, Palm, and Honey Hill. We did an aerial flight over that property to determine what was developable and what was not. We did an appraisal of the site to determine value. We have subsequently met with Dr. Sigestedt's partner, who's the developer, and he's going to be working with Dr. Sigestedt to submit some plans to decide what he would like to develop, and then based upon that, they would tell us what land they would have available for the city to then examine that site as a potential location.
All right, so what's the timeline for that? Are we in danger of losing the funding that we received? And are we letting our assembly member know what's going on with respect to the money that she found for us?
We have not engaged the assembly member. We certainly can do that in terms of an update on that. Mr. Weiss and I have both been in contact with the state. I believe that the deadline that we have is 2020?
2022, but I would also like to add, Mayor, that
it
can apply for an extension till 2025.
Wow, okay. And when did we start this process?
Well, I think we received the grant in 2018.
And when did we expect to start construction?
We expected to move very quickly. After, I think within a year and a half, we were anticipating having a site.
Okay, so that's the last of my questions. Any further questions? Councilmember Wilson.
Mayor, this is just an administrative issue, but it would seem to me that this is about the third or fourth consultant agreement we've reviewed, and I know that a lot of times we sign agreements that are created by the consultants. It would seem that it might be expedient for us, rather than having to review a reinstatement, that maybe some convenient language to the effect of an evergreen might be installed with this change, so that we can streamline procedure. You guys don't have to create a report around it, and we can just move on unless one of the two parties decide that they don't want it to move on for some reason. So I was just thinking that it might not be a bad idea.
A mutual agreement to extend the contract.
For other agreements, or this one?
I think he's saying for this one and other agreements.
It sounds like for this one and then in the future, so that we don't continue to come back and have to extend if there are situations that keep the
Yeah,
contract from
evergreen.
being met,
Right.
time-wise, not money-wise.
Right, right. Yeah, we could look at that for other contracts. I mean, this one's in front of you, so we can approve it tonight, but for other ones, we could definitely bring that back. If the council wants to just do a simple amendment to extend the original terms of the agreement, we could do that as well.
And you already have the amendment in here.
Yeah, this contract is the amendment effectively.
Okay.
And I'll note, the Exhibit D on packet page 164 is the schedule of performance. The schedule is something that would be approved by the city manager. So, we could obviously work with the city manager to ensure that the schedule of timeliness is done to ensure that we meet whatever requirements we have for grants or state funding.
And who will the city manager share that with when he receives the contract and approves it? Or the schedule and he approves it?
I mean, he could bring it back for the council to
Bring it back to the council.
I just want to know what's happening with this, mostly because I'm asked whatever happened to the trail. I'm asked what happened to the money that we received for this trail. And it doesn't really look very transparent if we've received a lot of money for something, and since 2018, I have not heard anything, nor has the community been involved in input to this trail.
Okay, I will make sure that we establish a mechanism to ensure that there is a transparent way that the public understands where we are and the timelines on the project and how much money that we spent in both grants that we have.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? All right, I'll open public comment. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll close public comment and bring it back for consideration of a motion.
I just have a comment.
Sure, Councilmember Robles.
Why can't some of this stuff be done by Zoom? I'm seeing other entities move forward with their projects using Zoom.
We certainly can, and I think part of the delay in over the last year or two was the fact that Dr. Sigestad did say that he was willing to talk with us. For the first 2 years of the project, we only had our particular site, so we focused in on that. But when Dr. Sigestad said he was interested in talking with us, we've been working in that particular area, so we haven't had the community engagement. So we're ready now to move forward.
Well, I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Robles, second by Councilmember Allen. Please call the vote.
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robles?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor McNabel?
No,
Motion passes.
thank you. We'll move on to item 9, City of Colton environmental document for public review pertaining to Barton Warehouse's draft environmental impact report notice of availability. Planning and Development Services Director Steve Weiss, presenter.
Again, good evening, Mayor McNabeau and council members. Yes, this is the draft environmental impact notice of availability that was distributed by the City of Colton, and City of Grand Terrace is a commenting agency. 2030 vision is engage in proactive communication. So, the City of Colton has issued a notice of availability of a draft environmental impact report and public workshop for architectural site review, conditional use permit, tentative parcel map, major variance, and development agreement of the northerly 43.85 acres of the 53.15 acre former Stater Brothers Markets headquarters and warehousing distribution. And just to give you a little context of where we are here, this is Barton Road right here. This is the existing Stater Brothers warehouse. This is North Terrace Road over here, South Terrace, and obviously west and east. Some of these graphics, I have to apologize, I had to take them out of the draft DIR, so if they're a little hard to understand, I'd be happy to provide information to you. The applicant is requesting entitlement approvals through the City of Colton for the development of two warehouses, speculative concrete tilt-up, known as high cube refrigerated industrial warehouses or a logistics center. The first building on approximately 28.14 acres, which is on the north side of Barton Road, and it'll feature 540,920 square feet of rentable area. Building 2, constructed on the south side, will feature 419,920 square feet of rentable building area. And it actually, there's another area down there, but there's no warehouse proposed for that area. The total proposed square footage of the new buildings is 960,000 square feet of office warehouse building, mostly logistics warehouse. The project is subject to analysis pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act in accordance with CEQA guidelines. The City of Colton is the lead agency with principal responsibility of considering the project for their consideration. So going back just a few weeks ago on January 26th, the project was and associated draft environmental impact report was discussed at a public scoping meeting via Zoom at a City of Colton Planning Commission workshop. City of Grand Terrace Planning and Development staff made a public comment expressing serious concern regarding unmitigatable traffic, aesthetic impacts to Grand Terrace, and land use concerns. Since most of the vehicles might use Grand Terrace streets, any form of an EIR override, which is also known as a statement of overriding considerations, is unacceptable to the City of Grand Terrace, meaning the project is unable to mitigate identifiable impacts to a level of insignificance. The draft environmental impact report is available for public review during the 45-day public review period until February 13th, 2021. Just going to go over a couple areas in the EIR that come to our concern. Grand Terrace under land use, Grand Terrace is concerned the subject property will greatly impact our city's ability to build out our community per the general plan. Specifically, it takes intensity away from different areas, which creates more impacts on the city. The project design forces all the traffic onto Grand Terrace's streets because the Barton Bridge onto La Cadena, in its current condition and design, is unable to accommodate this proposed project. Now on to aesthetics. The buildings as proposed, as I earlier stated, they are high cube warehouses intended for refrigeration, meaning they would be taller than a conventional warehouse and can be as much as 15 feet taller than their height limit. They are actually trying to amend their code right now to eliminate the variance provision, but these will be the largest buildings in the area if constructed.
Say that again, they are trying to eliminate the ability for them to have the variance, or they want them to be able to have the variance?
They want to eliminate the need for a variance.
Okay, so they're clearing the way for them to have these taller buildings? Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. That sounds like it, yes. Now under circulation, the impact of the proposed project's heavy trucks is not adequately addressed in the traffic impact analysis. The primary access road to the I-215 for the proposed Barton Road Logistics Center is Barton Road within the City of Grand Terrace. So getting a little deeper into it, the project, in reviewing the traffic study, the project's trip generation analysis indicates that 136 of the daily truck trips will be those with 4 or more axles. It is anticipated that at least some of those 4+ axles will be trucks, longer trucks than is actually allowed on Grand Terrace's streets with a single trailer. This assumption is supported by the report's use of a certain type truck in exhibits, which shows a truck's wheel paths at project driveways and at the roundabout on Barton Road at the I-15 southbound ramps could be quite challenging. Of particular concern are the wheel paths where trucks maneuver around the roundabout. So at this point, because I think Craig is a lot more articulate in explaining the Surface Transportation Assistance Act. I'm going to hand this over to him so he can discuss a little bit more about STAA.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council.
If you would, go ahead and state your name. So that
Craig
the
Bradshaw, interim Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw.
Yeah, STAA trucks are longer than California legal trucks. And I believe Mr. Weiss just went through this, but the trip generation shows there's 136 of these daily trips with the 4+ axles. And we believe a large number of those will be this STAA trucks with a single trailer. STAA trucks are overlong trucks. They have difficulty navigating most streets. They have restrictions on them. They're allowed generally only on the interstate highways and other special locations if they're properly signed. To exit the interstate requires a Caltrans study and encroachment permit, and local jurisdictions must approve the use of these trucks on their streets. This sign that you're seeing there, that's a terminal truck route sign. Those are installed on interstate highways on the off-ramps where Caltrans will allow them to use the off-ramps. Off-ramps have to be specifically designed to meet the proper turning radiuses for safety. And I dealt with one of these in a previous city and took well over a year to get through Caltrans to get approval. Mr. Weiss talked a little bit about the roundabout. Here's a picture of the roundabout with their truck template. They're using what's called a WD-67 truck. It's an oversized, over-length truck. It completely fills the intersection. We've asked for better details and also showing the on and off ramps properly. None of this has gone through Caltrans for their approvals. This is to help you understand this STAA trucks. STAA stands for, I should remember it. Oh, Surface Transportation Act. It was established in 1982 to allow over-length trucks. The legal truck is the one on the right. It's the black California legal trucks. Typically, these have a 40-foot trailer, and the overall length does not exceed 65 feet. And majority of the trucks you see on the interstate are the green STAA trucks. They'll have either 46 or 48 or a 53, many of them are, say, 53. The trailer is 53 feet long, and the cab of the truck is also much longer than standard, and these trucks can go way beyond 65 feet. Typically, they can go 85 or 90 feet. They're much longer and have much larger turning radius. If you start digging into this a little more deeply, this is kind of a small type, but most of these truck routes that use the STAA trucks are really just the interstates. And you'll look, and for the most part, all the interstates will be green, saying that these over-length trucks can use them. You'll see just a very few state routes with the blue symbol allowing the trucks to get off onto the state routes. And there's a number of state routes that don't allow these over-length trucks whatsoever. But these over-length trucks have become very pervasive. I think as you're driving down the freeway, you'll tend to notice them now. You'll see the 53 on the side, or you'll see the over-length, the cab that's much longer than normal. All those are the over-length trucks. And this is Caltrans steps determining local roads that you can use. There are very few local roads that are assigned that allow for these types of trucks. If they are allowed off the interstate, they're supposed to be within 1 mile services and a turnaround for these over-length trucks for them to legally use the local streets. I'm just aware of a couple of locations actually in Southern California that actually have the signage that allow them. So although the analysis assumes that the project traffic will primarily access the I-215 freeway from Barton Road, the freeway is often congested and is under current conditions. And when this occurs, motorists use surface streets to avoid using the freeway. One of our concerns is the use of Mount Vernon from Colton going up the grade. and using that as a shortcut to get around congestion on the freeway. Mount Vernon at that location is not even a truck route, let alone terminal truck route per se. And the use of that stretch of the roadway is very problematic in that we have potentials for slope failure, and the large trucks just exacerbate that issue. We have applied for a FEMA grant, and we believe we're in the final stages where hopefully FEMA will agree to fund the analysis portion, and then depending on what the results are, will fund the stabilization of that slope. And a little bit about trip distribution. On the actual site, the project driveways 1 and 4 at the north end of the project will be for passenger cars only, no trucks. They also indicated that the passenger car trips will only use Walnut Avenue and South Terrace Avenues to access Barton Road. However, the employees could also use back roads like Vivienda Avenue to proceed east and south through the City of Grand Terrace residential areas to access Barton Road in the 215. And I'm going to turn back over to Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. Welcome back,
One more time.
Director Weiss.
Yes, ma'am. So let me just get my notes together real quickly. Apologize for that. As it says, it is important that Grand Terrace shares our input with the City of Colton. So, regarding a letter of opposition, it's a little bit more than just a typical EIR letter. Staff is performing extensive review of the EIR and will furnish the technical comments from all parts of the EIR to the lead agency within the legal time frame, which we've been working in earnest on. It is important that Grand Terrace shares our concerns regarding the environmental impacts with the City of Colton. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize staff to submit a letter of opposition on their behalf and oppose, as this proposal will jeopardize Grand Terrace's outstanding quality of life. So, as a recommendation, staff recommends that the City Council authorize staff again to provide this letter wherein staff will submit comments, concerns, and questions regarding the analysis of environmental impacts generated from the proposed project. At this point, that concludes my presentation. I'm available if you should have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weiss. Do we have questions at this time? All right, no questions. Any public comment? Open public comment at this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back for discussion and consideration of motion. Councilmember Allen?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to move staff's recommendation. Do you want me to read it, the recommendation?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Allen and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Hussey for staff recommendation. Will you please call the vote?
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robles?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor McNamara?
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. All right, we have no requests for future agenda items, so we'll go to City Council communications, beginning with Councilmember Jeff Allen.
I don't have anything to report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Doug Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two items. Yesterday, my dog and I were watching out the window, the front window, and we saw one of the sheriff's cars go rolling down Observation Drive, and we gave a yahoo as they went past. And it wasn't more than about 10 minutes later, one of those ratty-tat-tat-tat motorcycles went racing down the road about 50 miles an hour, and about a half a minute behind that at the most. The sheriff had his lights on, and me and the dog were yay-hooing so much, I think we were both going to choke. It was a thrilling experience. So thank you for that. Our subcommittee met about a week ago in relation to some draft legislation, and those comments are being reviewed by the city attorney as well as city manager, and then we plan on coming back and then bringing that back to council. So right now, that's rolling forward. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilson. Councilmember Sylvia Robles.
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Robles. Mayor Pro Tem Bill Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, just a quick thing, I attended the League of Cities refresher course online. It was interesting. I felt like I was in traffic school.
Was that interesting?
Yeah, but it was, it's nice to get a refresher course and just go over some of the stuff. And then I attended to Central Division Homeless Zoom meeting, and, it's a lot of work these guys have for that, and I appreciate the sheriffs and everybody's doing their thing, and it was quite an experience yesterday when we were trying to help this gentleman. But that's about it, Mayor. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And January 27th, I attended California Joint Powers Insurance Authority Executive Committee meeting. They talked to us about their academy plan. They had to cut back on their academies last year because of COVID. What they're coming up with for the coming year is 3 consecutive half-day sessions. And they're March through May, where they'll have virtual only, and the speakers will be remote or in person at the JPIA location. And then beginning in June, they'll have hybrid, where speakers will be in person, and there will be both virtual and hybrid academy events that will be in the authority's California room. I wanted to talk about some of the academies that were coming up, because I think they're very interesting, and I hope that our staff will be able to take advantage of them, especially if they're Zoom. That makes it a whole lot easier for them to do. So there's a Park and Rec Academy in March. There's a Risk Management Academy in April. They're having Governance and Leadership Academy in May, and that's open to all elected officials, so that might be something that City Clerk could send out information to us as they announce that one. There's an Executive Academy in May, and there's a Public Works Academy in October and a Management Academy in November of 2021. So just a heads up that those are coming, and those would be good for staff, but then there's a couple that council might be interested in attending as well. So Omnitrans on February 3rd, the Executive Director, Aaron Rogers, and Director of Operations, Human Resources, Strategic Development participated in a virtual autonomous vehicles and public transportation conference. Yes, autonomous vehicles will be coming to us someday. So they attended on the 2nd and 3rd, and this focused on pilot programs and a vision for transit autonomous vehicles in alignment and autonomous vehicle use cases in transit and the impact of that on the workforce. Also, Omnitrans is examining the ability to provide transportation to the county's large vaccination sites, and they will be working with the county staff on how they can contribute to that effort. They have also received the first of 4 electric vehicles, and New Flyer, the company they purchased them from, is on site conducting technical training for Omnitrans staff. And then SBCTA, also on February 3rd, the board authorized the next steps in the development of what they're calling the Ontario Loop. And this is plans for an underground transit loop between the Rancho Cucamonga Metrolink station and the Ontario International Airport. So anyone riding on Metrolink, or you could leave your car at the Metrolink station somewhere close to Grand Terrace. And if Barney Barnett gets his way, maybe there'd be one in Highgrove, but we'll see. Anyway, so you take Metrolink to Ontario, there'll be a special station there that will then take you to Ontario Airport with a underground loop. This is going to be built nearly 4 miles, and it is a tunnel, so it's all underground, and it will connect Metrolink's busiest line with the nation's fastest growing airport. And the subterranean transit system would shuffle thousands of passengers per day between Rancho Cucamonga Station and Ontario using zero-emission vehicles. And the interesting thing is the company that is moving forward with this is the Boring Company, which was founded by Elon Musk. So if they can do it, anyone can. And that's the end of my report. Mr. City Manager, do you have communications for us tonight?
I have none, Mayor.
All right, so at this time, we will adjourn to the next regular City Council meeting that will be held Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on future agenda must be in writing and submitted to the City Clerk's office, and the request will be processed in accordance with council procedures. We are adjourned.